Alright everybody, welcome back to the Chupacabra's lair, and today we have Cyberpunk Jam Showcase Volume 4, and we're checking out another 5 great games from different developers. If you haven't checked it out, the voting has closed for the Cyberpunk Jam. You can check out the top 10, 20 folks and their game in each category for ARPs, including an overall. Definitely congratulate anybody who's in the top, 10, 5. They did a great job, and they definitely deserve it. So we're got a couple interviews coming up. Definitely one more showcase. Otherwise, let's just jump right in there and check out these games. Alrighty, first up on our list is Drop Till You Stop by Jevin and Jack Elland. This is an interesting sort of game. It's sort of like Skydiving meets Endless Runner, and your goal is to run through, or glide through, or hop through as many of those delectable blue circles as you can before time runs out and you reach the end of your run. So, your goal, hit those blue circles, get 100 points each, and make it to the end, presumably alive. Your enemies are pretty much everything else. You've got evil red walls, you've got viral discs floating through the air, and you've got doom portals of nano-binary jankiness that might scramble your data bits and packets. And so, as you run along, you start off sort of gliding and you hit the ground, and you jump back up and you can sort of control and glide through the air to hit those higher up little sphere circles. And then you can float back down to the ground to kind of gain up speed and momentum, and then hop over other obstacles that might end up in your path. So there's a couple things to consider here. Obviously, there's these obstacles, and the obstacles don't outright kill you. They just knock down your score a little bit by 100, 200, 150, somewhere around that mark. And so, if you're not careful, you'll wind up far in the negatives like I did a couple of times. And otherwise, your goal is to just make sure you hit as many of those blue circles as you can. Another thing these obstacles end up doing is as you hit them, they slow you down. Now that might not sound particularly scary at first, okay, it janks up my score and slows me down a little bit. But the problem there, despite, not killing you, is that there is quite a bit of terrain to cover if you want to get as many points as possible, and getting slowed down means that that counter there at the top, that nifty little bar, will keep going without you. And that's not your distance traveled so far to the end of your little running route, that's actually time spent running. And if you don't maintain a really fast run speed, you're gonna end up missing out on a whole boatload of rings there at the end. There's like a ring-a-palooza, like a magical ring kingdom on the sky of all those magical points if you can last long enough. I just about got there a couple of times, but didn't really get to go to Ring Valhalla quite yet. So, just going through some feedback on what I experienced when I played this game. The one thing I would note, I dig the sort of art style you're going for. It feels very sort of Tron-esque. It's sort of like Tron meets Reboot in like a really old school Endless Runner. I think Nintendo had like a forward-facing Endless World traveling runner for one of the Game Boys. But the main problem I have is it's just so dark, and it's hard to see a lot of the obstacles, save for those giant glowing portals of Vujdu that have all those binary bits coming out. That's about the only thing you can really see, and maybe whatever's obscuring the really big ones. So the one thing I would definitely say is uptick the brightness a little bit, especially given all the detail that you've got going on in the reflection of the floor, which I kind of like that, by the way. It's kind of like you're running in this reflection of the real world as you try to avoid digital obstacles, and it kind of reminds me of the reflection pool at the Washington Monument. So that was kind of cool. But the other thing I might say is the controls can be a little bit sluggish and janky. That might be a little bit intentional, at least as far as maneuvering speed goes. But the other thing that I wound up doing a lot was having keys get stuck, so you end up listing off to the left until you hit the edge border, and you can kind of list off a little bit and just get stuck for a moment until you get your butt back over. And then sometimes when I just sped up to gain momentum to kind of leap quickly into the air, I ended up overshooting all of the terrain really high and discovering that there really isn't a ceiling in the game, which was kind of cool. It let me see how you laid out the obstacles and that not everything was this open world. There was actually some cool little tunnels in there, so that was kind of nice. So maybe adding a ceiling. Otherwise, I kind of dig it. I mean, it's not as random as a lot of endless sort of runner games, but it gives you some replayability to kind of try and beat your own score by improving your tactics, deciding upon different travels through this, different paths to travel through this level. So I kind of like it. So very nice job. Keep up the good work, gentlemen. The sound was on par. Maybe add a little sound effects as you jump or hit something you shouldn't, and I think you're golden. Okay, after that we've got a puzzle game called Night City Jump by Pixel Art M, and this is what's known as a puzzle script game, which is a cool little platform for making really great 8-bit games that I only recently became aware of. So I've actually found a lot of really cool games by just looking that up as a sort of moniker of game development. And the goal of this game is you're this cute little 8-bit corporate espionage burglar, and you've got to break into these skyscrapers for these giant futuristic cybernetic megacorporations, and you got to steal their trade secrets and get out without getting stuck or murgled. And so these are pretty basic. There's these little sort of black terminals you got to go up to and hack, and when they get the little ziggy line, you've hacked them and you've got their information. Then you got to get out of that door and face jump off of there and get off to your next score. And then after that, it starts to add a little bit complexity. You've got to get the data without getting, trying to escape. And then you've also got to work around these little pressure pads in order to make sure the door opens so you can get out alive. And so that's pretty simple and straightforward. I like a good basic, brain teaser type of game, like I've said in the past. The one thing that I sort of ran into was like, I gave it quite a bit of time on that first level right after we ended up out of the tutorial levels. I just can't open that dang door to save my life. I tried freaking tact after tact. It's probably something super simple, and I'm just not used to thinking that way, but it definitely got my mind in a twister. Maybe I'm just missing something or a mechanic, but it was pretty cool. The art style, as a puzzle script type of game, is very simple. It's very 8-bit. Everything is a series of blocks, and you got this little dude in a trench coat hacking into these cybernetic terminals and making sure he gets the inputs right to get out the door. So that's real strong. Not a lot in the way of sound, just kind of like a handful of action sounds as you hack the terminal or walk around or move the blocks on top of their corresponding nodes so that they open up the door. So that's very nice and well done. I don't necessarily think it needs background music, but it couldn't hurt to give it a shot once or twice. I think this game could be pretty cool if you kept refining it. It's definitely got that Cyberpunk Jam feel. I mean, it's the future, cybernetic corporations, mega corporations, and you got to do digital espionage and go in there and hack these pseudo-analog terminals and make out with the trade secrets so that you can get paid. So that's very, cyberpunky, very hacky, slashy, almost sort of Blade Runner-y at the end of the day. So that was pretty cool. I didn't get a chance to experience a lot of it. Again, I got super stuck on the first puzzle. So that's maybe not the best for my reputation as someone who claims to love puzzle games. Alrighty, after Night City Jump is Downfall by the Evil Cult. And this is a cool looking point and click game. They themselves admit that they didn't quite want to get to accomplish quite as much as they wanted to before the deadline of the Cyberpunk Jam, but I still think they did a pretty nice job. So, right off the bat, you're greeted with this lovely pixel art of this guy's apartment, and he wakes up and he's got a phone call, and his friend is like, "Oh man, you gotta get over here. Some stuff going down. Gonna get murgled." And you're like, "What? What are you talking about? I just woke up. You gotta let me have my coffee first. Hello? Jeffy? What? Dang it, you're always getting it." And then you gotta go point and click your way and find out what happened. And so, just jumping around the room, you got these cybernetic headsets that let you jack into the net, and you got all this, you got a future computer and a coffee table full of stuff and a sink with last night's dishes because you went to sleep early, and you just jump out and you go off about your adventure. So, I like a lot of point-and-click games. I'm kind of biased in that regard. I definitely liked the most recent game for that on the web called The Last Door. I recommend that if you haven't seen it before or played it. It's free on the web, so definitely check it out. And so when you get outside, you gotta find your way to your friend's body, and you don't know it's his body yet, but you find his way, and you're like, oh no, he's been murdered, and the cops are like, yeah, it's weird, it looks like a suicide, but something's not quite right about this, and you're like, ha! There's a mystery afoot, but I've gotta get into his apartment to find out, and you gotta go get your identification to sneak in. So the art style is really strong in this game. Like, right off the bat, that's what I noticed. There's a nice pixel art in the characters. They're very pixely. They give me that trend of, like, futuristic, like, Chinatown at the edge of, like, whatever district. And, there's sort of shady salesmen everywhere. And it definitely reminded me of, like, in a lot of different movies, you end up in that sort of, like, shady district. There's a lot of, cyber hackers with like these crazy brain drugs that you plug into like a VCR and you go on a crazy adventure. The one thing I would definitely work on, the background music is killing me. Like, there's some cool sound effects going on that I can almost hear, but the background music is super duper loud in every browser that I tried it in. So definitely work on that. But the art is strong. Clearly there's a really strong story in there. I didn't get far enough to see if there's, it falls apart anywhere, and clearly there's a point in which it ends, because you didn't get a chance to finish it like they said. But I definitely like that, and I love point-and-click games. Another problem that I had in all browsers that I tried it in is the movement of the camera as it follows the character is super-duper twitchy. I would definitely work on that. But I definitely dig the story, and I dig the artwork, so very nice job, guys. Alrighty, right next up is Cybear Bearzerk by QT Bear Dev. And man, something tells me there's a bear-related theme here, but I do appreciate a good bear share. I myself have created my own little menagerie of weird bear creatures, including beargins, bear penguins, and sea bears. They're crazy, six-limbed compatriots with fins and shark noses that are totally not related to the tiny microscopic water bear. Not at all. So right off the bat, you jump in there, you're a cybernetic murder bear, and you've got to kill these robots and progress through this level of endless, arenas made out of three-dimensional Tetris blocks. And so, like, the one thing that jumped into my head when I saw this was like a Duke Nukem reference, like, I'm here to have a teddy bear picnic and shoot robots. Yeah, I'm all out of cybernetic berry jam, jelly, peanut butter, and jelly sandwiches, you delicious cybernetic buggers. And so you just jump in there, shooting everything with lasers. It's great. It's very simple to control. I love a good, just straight in there. Get down to business. Start shooting stuff. What are you waiting for? They're gonna murgle you. So we'll just kind of go through like the gameplay. You're the bear. You're running around this crazy three-dimensional little Tetris arena, and you gotta shoot indiscriminate amount of robots, somewhere between 3 and 5, maybe 7. I can only get so far before I end up getting cornered like instantaneously as they spawn. But I think it's a cool sort of art concept where you add this 3D or pseudo 3D arena of Tetris blocks and reflective like flooring, and then these like two-dimensional bears and robots with ray guns. It's great, love it, keep all of that. Especially because, like, there was this one manga a friend of mine showed me a long time ago, and it was like this kid's got this weird toy closet, like all the toys came to life, but one of the toys is like this murdering bear, and he's like a serial killing bear that kills other toys, so I got that vibe right off the bat from this cute little bear, so that was perfect for me. The sound is really strong. I mean, there's ray guns, you got ray gun noises, you got pumped up battle music. There's not a lot to say about that. I mean, the robots are screaming at you. They're like, annihilate the intruder. Robo-America or something. I'm not sure what that other thing was. I couldn't quite make it out. And you're just growling and blasting away with your yellow beams, and they're bouncing off of walls into the robots, and you gotta go into one of those doors to the next level in this infinite arena platformer. Very simple, very straightforward. I don't necessarily, I mean, it's a cybernetic bear that's on a rampage. Maybe that's Cyberpunk. I don't know a lot about Cyberpunk, but I still enjoyed it. So, very nice job, Mr. Bear Dev. Keep up the good work. Keep sharing them bears, and we'll catch you in the next game jam I find you in, 'cause I'll be looking for you now. Last but not least on the docket is Limbs by Rezoner. And this is a game that kind of caught me by surprise, because I actually found this not on the Cyberpunk Game Jam page, even though it itself on its credits, right when you load it up, says it's for the Cyberpunk Jam, but I actually found this on Reddit, on one of the gaming subreddits, and I played it not realizing it was a Cyberpunk Jam game, just because it's like, hey, you played Papers, Please? Because this game really gives you that vibe, and like, I really enjoyed Papers, Please. It was one of those games that caught me off guard because it seemed like a really janky kind of concept, but when you get in there, you're just like, wow, you gotta worry about this stuff, and is this guy gonna murgle people on the inside if I let him pass the checkpoint? Man. So, Limbs is a game where you are a sort of a cybernetic technician, presumably in the near future, in the back of some sort of futuristic Radio Shack or working in a factory, and you've got to service cybernetic hands that are under warranty that have got something wrong with them. It could be as simple as they're worn out, or someone bought a defective one that needs to have a small piece repaired, to somebody needs a custom-made limb because they're a doctor or a guard or a super secret agent who needs to be able to hack and stun and poison people and then shoot the guard on the way out so they can get away safely. So it's very minimalist in there's a limited number of hardware configurations that you need to worry about, yet it's also quite complicated in there's quite a few different needs that you've got to cater to in a very short amount of time if you want to get paid, or if you just don't want to PO your boss. So if you need to cover, let's say you need to cover a doctor. Doctors don't need any specialized fingers, but they do need a high level of precision. By default, your hand has about a medium of both. Got a good grip, and it's got good precision. And you gotta switch out the resistor, so it's got a high amount of resistance, doesn't offer much of a grip, but it offers a high amount of fine-tuned, slow precision. And then maybe swap out the CPU to make it super precise and smart. And you're ready to rock. You sew those, you screw those parts back together correctly, and then make sure you recheck the person's skin color, so you apply the right hand skin color, and send it off to the races. So that sounds pretty simple, but there's quite a few details involved beyond that. Right off the bat, the author decided, well, it might be better just to explore this, much like Papers, Please, than to really lead people through with a tutorial. So it just says, hey, you're a technician, here's a hand, take the hand apart so you know all the pieces, put it back together, and hit the check mark when you're ready. Seems simple enough, but when you turn on that check mark, you jump in and, oh, what is this? Oh, you gotta worry about, okay, you gotta make sure it's from the right company, because we don't support every company's hands. You gotta make sure that it's not an expired warranty by checking the date, and then at the bottom there's a handy dandy little serial number that you gotta make sure corresponds to the serial number on the hand to make sure it's not stolen. And so, that's quite a bit to keep track of off the bat. Something that I ended up forgetting a lot, just because I got kind of involved with putting the hand together, is you've also got to make sure that the hand's the right skin color. Because, if you give a black guy a white hand or an Asian guy a black hand, they're going to be PO'd because that's the wrong hand color. See, something I always do right off the bat is I just get the right skin color ready to put back on the hand, otherwise I'm going to derp out and forget that. But otherwise, that gives you a nice little manual that says, okay, so this guy's like, I'm a guard. And then you open up the manual, it's like, okay, guard needs a stunner, he needs a scanner, and then he needs a pistol. Okay, simple enough. There you go. Tack that together, make sure it's the right strength and dexterity, send it off, magic happens. So it's a good combination of simple and complex, much like Papers, Please. The art style, again, I definitely dig it. It's very minimalist. Not a lot to worry about. It doesn't distract you. It's like, I'm very cartoony, very unrealistic. Clearly this hand would never work in real life, but isn't this kind of cool? And then, as you go along, as you make sure all those parameters fit together, you get some money. Currently, it really only serves to give you a high score for how many hands you can fit in a workday before that timer runs out at the top. But otherwise, it runs pretty cool. I definitely dig it. I really like Papers, Please. So, one thing I would say, it's got, good art. It's got good sound. There's this nice whir sound as the screws goes in. There's a soldering sound of a hiss that you would expect, like shh, as the metal gets going on, with the solder and everything. And then, of course, if you do need it, besides the clicks and the whirs and the zips, it's also got some background music. You hit the radio and magic. I would definitely say, if you can, definitely try to finish this off into its own full-fledged game. I don't know if maybe you need to revise some of the artwork or whatever, but it's very cool, and it's a very nice concept for sort of like an inspired game from different categories. And it's also pretty cyberpunk jammy, just in that, yes, it's the future and there's some cool cybernetic stuff going on, but you can also cater to and create hands for super spies and hackers and all sorts of different folks from different strokes. So, very cool. I've been super impressed by all these games so far, guys, so I definitely say, if you're not certain if you want to keep doing game jams, I would keep it up. I've seen a lot of cool stuff come out of this, a lot of great stuff. A lot of really inventive stuff, and even stuff I didn't expect to be as interesting, like that interzone scanning mission in the wastes. That took me by surprise, and that's not something that happens a lot. So, in closing, I've got one more showcase lined up with several games. That'll happen in the next couple of days. Rogue Noodle has agreed to do a little interview about his game, 9.9, that ended up in the finale, sort of the final, the top, 10 or 20 folks for the overall ratings in the end rankings. And we've also got Jared from Taste Like Future Games. We checked out his sort of endless runner in the first showcase. So we're definitely going to do a couple of those. I'm going to see if Devi ever is interested in doing a closing interview talking about both the Cyberpunk Game Jam and the kind of outcome from that, along with the next Game Jam coming up, which is the Gender Jam, which explores the roles of different genders in gaming and a chance for people to kind of take their experiences from their own lives and sort of place them as inspiration into the game. So, I have, of course, been Larry the Chupacabra. Keep up the great work, everybody. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you had a comment, be sure to throw that out there. I'd love to hear some feedback. If if you're one of the game creator and you had some notes about your creation process, feel free to throw them in there. That's part of the whole idea here, is to share what we've got going and kind of give some feedback and talk about what's going on. And I'll catch you next time. I've been Larry the Chupacabra, and ta-ta for now.